Good morning. If you look in your bulletin this morning, you'll see a little black box. That's something new. It's Moment for Justice. You're going to be seeing this little box in the coming months, probably about once a month. I'm a member of the Justice Matters First Baptist Church team, and each of us on our team in the coming months is going to share a story. We're going to all share stories with you about the importance of helping others. So this summer, I went on a ride-along with a Lawrence police officer. And a ride-along is when you ride along with a police officer during his shift. And I went on a 7 p.m. to a 3:10 a.m. shift, which actually ended up being till 5:30 in the morning. It was a long shift. So you're probably wondering, why would you do this? Well, the first reason is my interest in law enforcement. The second is just my curiosity about forensics. And the third is just more about my fascination about what is going on in our community when we're all asleep. I wasn't sure what to expect, but mostly I was thinking intoxication, speeding tickets, expired tags, which I had one, and I found that out, and so we saw a lot of that kind of stuff. But what I didn't expect was how many calls that we were going to get that concerned mental health issues. There were 2 suicide attempts we went to. There were runaways, but there was one particular call that will always stick with me. We got dispatched to a street near downtown where a gentleman called, and he said he had found a woman walking around in the middle of the street. She was very agitated and just kind of talking out of her head. When he sat down on the sidewalk with her, and he tried to calm her down, but he soon discovered he was not able to, so that's why he called the police. So when we arrived, they were there, and she was still visibly upset. A backup officer came, and he talked with the guy. As the officer that I was riding with, he bent down on the sidewalk, and he gently started talking to her. I sat in the car, and I listened. The officers wear microphones, so you can hear what's going on in the squad car. He calmly asked her a few questions. He said, do you have family or friends in town? And she said, no. And then she said, yes. And then he said, are you from Lawrence? And she said, no. And then she said, yes. And then she said, no. And he said, do you have a place to stay? And she was like, no, and yes, no. And there was a storm brewing. So the second officer, he stepped aside to call the community shelter to see if there was a bed available for her. So in the meantime, this woman began to tell the other officer, she didn't trust men or police officers. So he talked in his little microphone, and he said, Stacey, could you come out here? So I did. And I sat down with her, and I began to talk with her. And she was getting more and more upset now because there were so many people involved with her. She asked me why I trusted the police and why I trusted men. So as we began to talk more, she made no sense. She was talking out of her head. I was having a hard time understanding what she was saying. And it was clear to me this lady needed help. So the shelter, they did have a bed, and I asked her if she wanted to stay there that night since there was a storm coming. She said yes, and then she said no, and then she said yes, and then she said no, I don't need that. So with that, since she did not mention hurting herself or others, we left her. We drove away to go to another call with her walking down the sidewalk, and off to the north, there was big lightning bolts going on. So later that night, we heard of another call of an agitated female who threw a brick through a downtown business window, and it was her. So instead of taking her to jail, she went to LMH because there were no other options for her. Hopefully, she had a calmer night, a hot meal, a warm bed, and some good care. But I can only assume that when the sun came up, she was released and her cycle would just start all over again. And all I could think of was, who will take care of her tomorrow? That's all I could think of. And the officer told me they see this all of the time in Lawrence, and they only hope that Lawrence gets a facility other than the jail or the hospital to help the mentally ill. So I went on this ride to quench a curiosity. That's why I really went, not ever thinking it would affect me this way. I had no idea that my ride along would be so insightful, and it would validate even my own participation in Justice Matters. This is one of the things that Justice Matters is all about. So our team that you're going to hear from in the coming months, we hope that you'll listen carefully to our stories and you'll pray deeply as you hear them. I told our team the other night, we need to remember that Jesus was the greatest fighter of justice in all of the history of humankind. So I just want to leave you with a real simple but complex question, and that is, what matters to you?